Hey YouTube, what goes on? And welcome back to Disavowed Action Figures. And it's a very somber day because we're here to, unfortunately, discuss a funeral. That's right, we're here to discuss the death of Jazwares AEW Wrestling Action Figures. I take no joy in this, despite the thumbnail's image. I'm not happy. I collected these for a very long time. Also, I didn't really script this out, so I apologize if it gets long or it gets some ums and some ohs and some pauses. So I'm going to kind of speak my mind on the topic. So essentially, it did come out this weekend that evidently Jazwares will not be getting an updated contract with the AEW action figures line. They've been making Jazwares AEW action figures since the beginning of AEW, going back to like 2020 or something like that. So a little bit of context. I was a lapsed wrestling fan. I was out of wrestling. I wasn't watching anything anymore. I probably stopped watching when WCW got really bad, when it got purchased by WWE. And I was never a huge WWE fan as a young adult, so I kind of just fell off of wrestling. And then one day my friend called me, good friend Six Packs Knickknacks, and he said, hey, put on YouTube. There's this thing going on in Jacksonville at the Jaguars Stadium. They're making a new wrestling league. And I said, you're kidding me. And I flipped it on. It was AEW. There was Cody, the Young Bucks, I believe, and they were announcing the formation of AEW. So I had no clue this was going to happen. I was, again, a lapsed fan, but I was in from the jump. Six Packs Knickknacks and I both watched that live stream video on YouTube, and I was immediately intrigued, pulled right back in the world of wrestling. Right there from Jacksonville, and I followed it from the very beginning. So not long after it started, there was an action figure line that was announced. They had this really awesome commercial that they showed throughout Dynamite. It was like an old school wrestling action figure commercial, which I'll throw some images here of. And we were off when we were running, and before I knew it, I was all in on buying pretty fairly frequently a new action figure line. So I believe that the MSRP originally was something around $19.99. Obviously, it went up a couple bucks over the years, but we got very excited every time we found a new line. The initial line, I remember finding at Walmart, they had this awesome shipper. I don't think I found a picture. If I did, I'll include it here. I thought I filmed it at one of my toy hunts, but I can't find that footage. But I did find myself, talking about the Kenny by God Omega figure that I had in my car for the first time, being very happy I found it, and we just kind of were off and running from there. So, again, AEW Wrestling, we started with Dynamite, we got Rampage, we got Collision, and over the years, this show has continued to grow, obviously pay-per-views, things like that. So the company, one could argue, obviously, is being rather successful. So very pumped to see the action figure line start to grow. We started having chases. Of course, every time we found a chase in the wild on my toy hunts, I would lose my mind, be so excited. Originally, they were actually pretty damn valuable, too. Over the years, that kind of diminished, unfortunately, which probably should have been a sign that the figures were not as popular as they initially were. Also, now looking like those stickers, 1 in 3,000, 1 in 5,000, may not mean anything considering they started showing up at parking stores years and years later after they were supposedly sold out. But what are you going to do? The action figure line continued to grow. We started with Unrivaled, then they added a second line, Unmatched. They are basically the same action figures, just a different branding on the packaging. One was gold, one was silver. I guess they gave them an opportunity to kind of get more figures out every year. Jeremy Padower of Jazwares Toys was always very vocal online, which we appreciated. A lot of updates on the line. He's kind of gone silent in recent years, which kind of led us to start to believe things were going down the opposite direction. However, then we started getting cool exclusives, whether it was Target exclusives, Walmart exclusives. We were getting exclusive online chases for different pay-per-views, things like that. We started getting multi-packs, which were very cool, of tag teams and other factions. We moved on to having the Amazon multi-packs. We had the Supreme figures come out, which were basically like the WWE Ultimate figures. We eventually got Jazwares Vault exclusives that were online exclusives through Jazwares, which were a lot of Ring of Honor figures, throwbacks to different characters. Once Tony Khan announced the purchase of Ring of Honor, we got a lot of those guys out there. The Briscoes got a really cool 2-pack that I picked up. We've got Owen Hart figures, which is a whole thing with the Owen Hart Foundation working with AEW over the years. So that was a very exciting time as well. But then things started to kind of slow down. I want to say it's probably about 2 years ago, probably somewhere around 2023, the back half of 2023 maybe. Waves stopped showing up. They slowed down. They would announce figures at different events around their pay-per-views, and then we wouldn't see them anymore show up in stores. I remember Six Pack saying to me, we didn't see Waves at all in Target or in Walmart, and if we did, it'd be one case and done. I remember the Penelope Ford Wave, whichever one that one was, that I saw, I think, never in stores. I ended up picking some up online from Ringside Collectibles. And unfortunately, the ringside collectibles thing started to be a detriment, I believe, as well, because we stopped seeing things at retail. We started relying online on things like ringside collectibles. And then all of a sudden, we'd get around December, November time of year, January, and we'd be seeing AEW figures on ringside collectibles in deep clearance, less than $5. That had to be the start of the demise. Now, yes, Mattel, WB would also have deep clearances as well, but I feel like AEW went really, 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 really deep on their clearances. We started seeing Target clearance them out a lot sooner as waves did start to show up again. They would just collect dust at Walmart. Remember that Hangman Page Walmart exclusive just being a complete joke, hanging on the Walmart page, collecting dust. GameStop eventually started getting them as well, and that's right when the fatigue kicked in, I think, because they would just sit and collect dust at GameStop. I'd see them on clearance there. And then it led to the day where we saw them at Ross. That's right. In the last couple of months, other toy owners, including myself, have been finding AEW figures, different waves for $2.99, $3.99. Just unbelievable. For a figure that has an MSRP at $19.99 or higher to get down to $2.99 at Ross. I mean, there's stuff at Ross that still costs $19, $20 sometimes, like NECA figures. For some reason, Jazwares, AEW, just the bottom dropped out on their value. And that really was the writing on the wall, I feel like, that things were definitely not looking good in the direction that it was going. So now the question does begin to come about. What's going to happen to AEW? So again, we know there's going to be AEW Wrestling. They have about a 4-year deal still, give or take, with Warner Brothers. But the problem is Warner Brothers is apparently going to sell. So originally they were going to split I guess, their company into the movie division and then the TV division, which Tony Khan was on the record as saying would not cause an issue for AEW and their contract. However, now it looks as if before they even split up their company in those two divisions, there's going to be a sale. So Warner Brothers, I guess it's Discovery technically, apparently was going to be purchased by Paramount, which leads to a whole problem because Paramount, I believe, has a deal or they own ownership with TKO, who owns or works with as a merger with WWE. So now you run into the issue of, okay, well, would they want to have AEW and WB under the same banner? I don't think the Triple H would be a fan of that, and neither would the other Khan. And then now we're having a bidding war. So apparently now Netflix, Comcast, all these companies, maybe Amazon, coming out of the woodwork, very similar to what happened with Disney when they acquired Fox multiple years ago. They thought they had a deal sorted out, and all of a sudden the price got driven up super high for the mouse. But I don't feel bad about that because, it's the mouse, and they're usually pretty terrible, despite the fact I enjoy a lot of Disney in my life. But even if things were to fall through, let's say that the contract ends, they don't get renewed. Let's say that Paramount purchase it and they decide to not have AEW television on their properties, whatever it might be. Tony Khan's a billionaire, so he's going to keep this thing going as long as he wants to. I should say his father's a billionaire. He has his family's money behind him. But the thing is, the question for you is, what company would you want to continue to make AEW figures? Because as long as there's an AEW, and I think even if the contract does run out, and you would think they'll probably get a contract with another company, but if they wouldn't, as I said, Tony Khan could probably keep it running if he wants to. Ultimately, the question would be, what company would take that license on? I mean, Hasbro is kind of like the big one people think of right away. They've made wrestling in a very long time, from what I can recall. You also have Jada Toys, which people love because of Street Fighter. Jakks Pacific is out there. They're smashing with their Simpsons action figure line right now, although it's pretty basic compared to a wrestling figure. But in addition to that, they did used to make WWE back in the day, and there was a really good line. A lot of people look back on those days as being very fond. I can't imagine that Mattel would pick it up, considering they just updated their deal with WWE recently, I believe. So, dear God, do I dare say McFarlane Toys would jump in? Would Toddy Mack want to make 7-inch wrestling figures? It would piss us all off because they're in a different scale. I would hope that would not happen. But ultimately, again, this video is not meant to celebrate the death of this line. Again, maybe they'll come out of the woodwork and sign a deal, but it sounds like the writing's on the wall with this line at this point in time. I've really enjoyed collecting it. I did lapse in collecting it in recent years. I just kind of narrowed my collecting habits. I got away from military figures. I got away from mostly wrestling figures. I picked up a few here and there. I cherry picked, like I picked up the Will Ospreay when I found it at Walmart because he's such an impact on the company. So I did pick up some here and there, but I did wait for a lot of clearances as well, which again, one might argue that's why the line failed. People like me stopped buying them at full price and learned to play the long game, which usually leads to the death a lot of times of some action figure lines. But again, we have to do what we want. It's our wallet. But either way, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this. I did have a lot of fun collecting this. I never expected to have such a large shelf of figures, which I'll try to throw some pictures in here. I think it actually spread than possibly 2 shelves of AEW. Even though they're not that valuable, it's one of those things where I don't think I'd ever want to sell it because it really kind of captures a it was kind of like a moment in time. Especially with my friends, we all kind of shared this AEW enjoyment. Obviously, we're hoping the company still continues and maybe action figures from a different company. But overall, it is a kind of a moment in time where, again, looking back, that a lot of this collecting was done during the pandemic when there were only AEW wrestlers in the crowd and there weren't any people there watching, or again, getting my first Brody Lee figure in hand in a special pack with his son after he unfortunately passed away. The dog collar pack with CM Punk and MJF. Of course, CM Punk having a cup of coffee, a cup of tea in AEW before he lost his mind. So a lot of CM Punk figures were put out during that time as well. So it just really kind of encapsulates a moment in time for myself and my friends of collecting and enjoying watching the product. But I wanted to get it out there and just share my opinion because it is kind of topical right now. So thanks for watching. If you're new, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It is free for you. It does not cost you anything and helps us grow the channel tremendously on the march to 8,000 subscribers. While you're at it, go ahead and click that bell for notifications because that way YouTube should notify and tell you when we post new content here to the channel, like our weekly toy hunts, reviews, and live streams. Leave a comment down below. Hit that like button. If for daily toy content and daily toy updates, try checking us over Instagram at disavowed_12. Hey, everybody, if you're going toy hunting this week, please remember the 3 Ps of the toy hunt: patience, persistence, most of all politeness. Take care, stay healthy, and I'll be seeing all of you at the pegs.